How are all my fly tires doing today? Pete here at Spawn Fly Fish, and we are ready to just jump into some bug tying fun. In the vise today, I've got the Ahrex FW 541, which is the barbless version of the 540, and this is size 12. Let me get some thread going here. If you notice, that's some pretty tiny thread. That is right. Just for you guys, rocking some 30D Veevus today, which is tiny, very small, but that's okay. We're doing this for a good reason. At least I think so. I'm going to tie some Griffith's gnats, and as you can see, size 12 is pretty beefy for a Griffith's gnat, but that's okay. I'm going to use them here locally, and I know I can get by with some bigger Griffith gnats, especially if I'm going to be moving them actively or skating them. And that's exactly what we are going to do today. Let's talk about this hackle feather very quickly though. A Hebert minor saddle is where this comes from whiting. Great, amazing feather. The whole saddle is just beautiful. My favorite one that I'm actively using. And so as you can see, there's a color phase change here from like this brownish tone into a grizzly. Now, in the world of picky fly tires, of course, we all have our preferences and all that. I'm going to start with this brown portion. And so I'm going to tie this in, good side facing up, away from the shank, right, toward the sky, and the underside, or the less than pretty side, if you will, of that feather, facing toward the shank or downward, so that as we begin to wrap, that underside faces back, and the good side faces forward, looking at us as we retrieve, and all that good stuff. So, a little bit different than the typical, standard peacock or even dubbing in the Griffith gnat. I don't like to tie those boring colors too often. I like hot colors for the most part. And by hot doesn't always mean an actual hot red like this. It could be orange. It could be a chartreuse yellow, anything like that. But I don't always want to use just the same old standard peacock. And so this is, of course, dyed peacock, and this is from Nature Spirit. This is their red, and it is dyed peacock, but it's bleached first. So what does that mean? Some of those little fibers and filaments coming off of the ends there might not be as long. So I'm really going to beef this up. I've got, I think, 6 strands here, which I know it seems like a lot, but it'll all make sense as we get going here. So I'm just going to tie all these bad boys in at once here and work them back to where we tied in our beauty hackle. There we go. Like so. And as far as keeping some semblance of uniformity, I'll tie these up a little bit before cutting off those tag ends there. Yahtzee. Nothing to it. One thing I do see a lot, especially with new tires, is they want to go all the way to that hook eye with their materials on this little gnat fly. And for the most part, it's not terrible if you can still create a small head and whip finish and all that good stuff. If you can't, this is like learning time for this vid, right? Go ahead and don't wrap necessarily all the way up to that eye. Just make it easy on yourself, especially if you're new to this. It's not all going to come out perfect the first time. Don't expect it to. And so I'm not going to use the term cheat, but lead yourself to the advantage that makes this, 1, easier, and 2, still maintains that fun part. So right there, by all means, I could have gone another wrap with that, right? There's space, but why force it? Because if I follow suit with this hackle now and I'd gone all the way to that eye, I'd have nowhere to finish that fly. I'd struggle, and either my hackle won't look right or the body won't look right. So give yourself a little space there. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. So now let's get some of those fibers back before we start this guy. And just going to take our time. Make sure we're wiggling as we come through our peacock. And then we're just going to palmer this forward. Nothing to it, folks. You can all do this. I know you can. As far as spacing, again, this is where, you know, using this brownish portion of this feather, it might not make everybody happy, but this is where quality of your material versus both quantity and necessarily color, right? So like, is it the red that's going to hit them? I don't know, but it's different than what they're used to seeing, right? So if everybody else is out there and they're fishing midges, and I noticed that there are midge clusters, which this fly is meant to imitate, then I'm not going to fish what everybody else is fishing. I'll fish the same style, maybe same size range, all that good stuff, but I'm not going to throw the same color. I want something just a little bit unique. And so a darker hackle on a bright red body, I gotta think that's a little bit unique, at least for the most part, on the areas I'm going to fish. And I know, you know, let's say it's a lake where you meet up with a certain group every other week or something like that. You kind of know what Bob's going to fish. You know what Linda's going to fish, right? So you don't necessarily want to have a full lineup of the exact stuff they're going to be fishing. I don't think that's much fun, and you never know, right? You might hit on that one bizarre fly, and you're just like, oh, nobody thought this would work, and here I'm the only one catching fish. 87 different reasons to not tie what everybody else is tying. There's one whip finish. Let's get a second one in there. And then this is a little bit different, but it's just because I love you guys so much, and I really appreciate all of their support from watching the videos, buying your materials here at Spawn. All of that means a lot to us. And so if I can give you guys just a scintilla of entertainment and hopefully some knowledge here on the vise, then I'm happy to do that. All right, so as far as like doing something a little bit different, there is your red Griffith Gnat with some non-traditional colored hackle in there, and let's just let that guy drop. Let's do that again, and this time I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret, which is Pete's favorite color of body for fishing the Griffith Gnat. So same deal, FW 541 to start, same 30D, which is very small thread. By all means, on a size 12, you could go 70D, which is 8/0, that in that range. All that's great. Don't get hung up on the size of this thread. I'm just having fun here on the vise and trying to share it with you guys. All right, so how about that? Fluorescent blue Peacock. That's right. So I've got the two extremes going today, hot and cold, red and blue, whatever you want to call it. I can tell you though, both of these are deadly. So is just a regular Peacock Griffith Gnat. But again, you've all seen that. You've all fished it probably, or if not, look into some of your fellow fishers' fly boxes. Find a couple of Griffith Gnats, leave them an IOU, and go find out what these things do. They flat out catch fish. They roll and bounce on the water surface, much like an actual midge cluster, and boy oh boy, fish know what to do. Alright, try not to grab the hook point there and just tie in. And this is, again, I've got, I'm skipping steps here, you guys got me so excited. Let's get back to that hackle. So this is that same hackle feather, but now I'm going to cut that so that we only have that grizzly portion. On this one I do want that grizzly look and grizzly effect, so let's get that in, and then we'll be ready to rock. There we go. So excited to get that blue Peacock tied in. I'm glad you guys stopped me though. That would have been an interesting fly. There we go. Hackle's tied in now. And there we are. Back to the blue Peacock. 6 strands. If 5 for some reason makes you happier, I would suggest using 5. If you can only use 3s, well, tie in 3, see how far it gets you, tie in another 3. Either way, it'll still get her done. Nothing to it. Just so you know, I'm not even dipping my fingers in water today, which, you know, typically if I'm wrapping anything like a hurl or something that needs to be twisted together, I'm a fan of having that water handy. However, much like tying in the blue peacock before the hackle, I don't always remember. So, what can you do? You make the best of it. Still fun on the vise. Still a fly that's going to absolutely smack fish. Well, just want to keep kind of continuing that twist on our peacock as we can, you know, move up the shank. Just remember, every wrap is going to undo that twist a little bit. So just keep twisting as you turn. And once again, let's not crowd that head. Oop, my thread just slipped there. I can see it, and so we'll just grab and reposition so it stays on top. Don't freak out. Just take a breath, adjust, get it in there. Trim all that good peacock out. If you guys have watched me tie, or you jump on Instagram and see some of my old flies, whatever it might be, I am not afraid of blue flies. I would say I love them. I love them a lot. So don't be afraid to try something new. I will tell you, purple is also a fantastic body color for this fly. Purple, and you can use peacock, you can get some ostrich going, you can use dubbing, whatever you want to do. Just don't be afraid to step out of the norm a little bit. There we go. Let's tie this hackle off. I love this hackle. Not stripping any sides of it or anything like that. And if you've watched me tie, you know what? I would love taking feathers apart, stripping off one side, all that good stuff. There's something about this Hebert minor, I feel dirty if I even consider it. And so I don't do that to these feathers. There we go. Cute little trim. A couple extra wraps here to form somewhat of what looks like maybe a small bug head. And keep in mind, this is meant to emulate a group of midges that are mating in mass. And that's about as nicely as I can put that. And so there's no order to it. It's just a bunch of them all together in a clump or a cluster. And that cluster, of course, as it sits on the surface of the water, is going to get moved around by any breeze, any ripple on the water. Right? They are not focused on the fish below them. They are simply busy at the task at hand. And fish, of course, if they could eat, you know, one fly versus 20 flies at one time, what do you think they're going to choose? It's that easy big chunk of protein, that 20 flies, right? And that's what these things are. So very important to the fish, especially trout, especially as the water starts to open up and become a little bit warmer in the springtime. So there you have it. We've got some Griffith's gnats, albeit slightly different than maybe what you are accustomed to seeing all the time. So there you go, folks. I hope you had fun tying these with me. I had fun. I always have fun with you guys. So do me a favor, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and we will see you all on the water.